Hi. So, I realized one of my quasi-little videos that I have yet to make concerning Asperger's is being in a relationship, long-term relationship, long-term romantic relationship. Socializing relationship is a whole different ball of wax. So, yeah, I'm working on 6 years right now in one, and as someone with Asperger's, I don't know how the Asperger's has necessarily affected the relationship, because it seems like all the stuff that I've influenced over the relationship and thus modified in him is adult orient. Well, that sounds that was going to sound really bad, but it was like more or less becoming an adult, getting on a schedule, you know, saving money, you know, being able to pay your bills on time, not forgetting to pay bills, sort of thing. It's just, it seems like all the stuff that I've influenced in the relationship is, and he says in his little blog thing that I've opened his mind to different ways of thinking. And it's like, I don't know how that works. I've asked him and he can't describe it. He says to think deeper about himself, because apparently I think deep about things. I'm not sure if it's just me or the Asperger's fixation or the predilection that I have to figuring out how things work and why they work that way. That's why I have this phenomenal knowledge of physics and astrophysics, and cosmology. You know, and I'm stuck at a point and I need to go back to college and get some basic stuff under my belt so I can start dipping into the quantum physics to figure out exactly what makes everything tick and find the reason for everything. You can call it a spiritual journey, but whatnot. So, like I said, in the relationship, and what has he done for me in respects of him being a neurotypical? I don't know. He's definitely explained things about society. Has he gotten me out and socialized? Not really. I don't go out and socialize much, because I know I'm really bad at it. It takes me a while to meet new people, because, well, the level I want to know them at in order to consider them a friend is far deeper than anyone else considers a friend for anything. It just... so... Anyways, it's... And that's probably, like I said, with the desire for knowledge. I want to know as much about someone as I can. I need to be able to predict them within a margin, you know. And when someone is easier or more predictable, easier to predict, I tend to like them more. If they're random, I don't, because, like I said, they're harder to predict. I don't know what they're going to do. I can't prepare for it, and they don't and people don't understand that. This is getting off topic. You know, and I know Aaron is trying to get me to, you know, loosen up on those reins of why I need to, you know, why I can't necessarily predict everything and everyone. But, you know, I can see people, you know, and I know television's fake, but I see on YouTube people's blogs, and they'll meet someone and they'll be good friends within like a week. Or a day, for Christ's sake. And I'm just like, man, You'll just give your heart out to anyone. But then they have the different definition of friend, which is changing. It's like, I saw you one time on the street corner halfway across the world 3 years ago. You want to be a friend? No, what? You know, we can blame any social media for that one. It's not just Facebook. MySpace kind of started ruining that one. So, yeah. I don't know. Not much more to say, really. What's it like being in a relationship? Well, I had to get him used to routine. He's still not really used to the fact that scheduling is beyond important. Absolutely beyond important. And it's probably because he has the neurotypical memory. You know, unless it's right there, you know, and what seems to me, unless it's right in front of their face, they can't remember it. And then it's not, you know, remembering it, you're just processing what you're seeing. And I know this stuff is in his memory. I've danced around and conjured up his memories before, but whatever. But it's like, there'll be like whole weeks where he just has no clue what day of the week it is. His spatial awareness is very odd. You know, and he probably looks at me the same way. Things he excels in or has no issue with, probably isn't a little bit better at it than normal. He looks at me and it just kind of does that little cat head turn to the side. You know? And so, you know, and I look at him, I'm like, how do you not remember things? You know, I accidentally remember things. How do you do that? How do you accidentally remember something? I do. I could be, there was, I don't know. I told him exactly, I had an example about a couple months ago when we went downtown. And we were just walking around, you know, doing food carts and shopping, getting ready for buying for Christmas stuff. And we walked by the Apple store. And someone walked by, or we were walking by and we stopped outside because I like to, you know, over dramatize the little, and you know, I just look in at just the people that are mushing around and doing weird, strange things. And it's like, I don't know. You should watch an Apple store sometime. You'll see what I mean. But, and we were just sort of like, I was like leaning over and I was like, maybe, but I could, you know, it's like, maybe I can get an iPad for my mom. That might be interesting because she wants to move up into the levels of technology. And so I was just sort of standing there and I was desperately thinking, you know, Galaxy tablet, iPad, blah, blah, da, 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 da. And I was listening to Aaron talk about stuff because I think, oh, we had just eaten at like a little fast food thing. Oh, he was talking about the tea. We should probably, you know, have some Tivana. I'm like, well, maybe. You know, it was really good tea. And someone came walking out. They dialed something on their new iPhone, which I didn't know was new at the time, but they dialed something on their iPhone, and they went, hey, so-and-so, I just got my new iPhone, and this is my new number, blah, 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 blah. And then they walked off. I blurred out the number now, but Aaron didn't even know the person was there. And I accidentally remembered their phone number. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna blurt this out. But I heard it once, and the person wasn't even talking to me. Am I good with numbers? Probably. Mom showed me my social security number for the first time. Or not, when she showed me the first time. I was like 16 when she showed me. She goes, here's your social security number. I just thought you might want to know it in case you start applying for a job. Hint, hint. Yeah, I was 16. And I was like, okay. And I looked down at it, and it was just like the numbers flew into my head. And Aaron can't get that I accidentally remember things. And it's caused some issues that I remember things about our relationship that he has no recollection of. None. And I'm like, ugh. And it's caused crying fits of me. You know, I'm memorizing. I remember this. I remember it clearly. I have, you know, the smells of stuff. I have the sight, the sounds of everything. I have such crisp memories of all this stuff. And he doesn't remember squat about it. And that's caused some fights with us. That I, you know, start fearing that I'm hallucinating, that I'm creating whole dramas in my head that don't even exist. But, you know, that's part of the thing. That's just dealing with normal people. I remember things people never could remember. And I'm like, but this has been in my memory for 6 years. How do you not know that this happened? You know? And I talked to other people that were, say, involved in the incident. They don't remember it happening. And then I wonder, did it really happen? You know, they say the level, you know, people like to joke the insanity is trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. No, there's, you know, what happens when you have a very crisp memory of something that was actually quite important, but nobody can back it up. And you can't find any evidence to back it up. Are you crazy? So, this has been a kind of all over the place. It's mainly about relationships, but I don't have much to talk about in relationships. We have a normal relationship. We sleep in the same bed. You know? He's, you know, gotten used to my weird hygiene habits. I've gotten used to him, you know, and his weird sleeping habits. I got used to a lot of them because after a while they maintained consistency. I forced him into consistency, and that's probably the one thing that is probably the biggest hurdle in a lot of relationships for, you know, Aspies and even high-functioning autistics. That word jumbled up in my head for a moment there. So, that's that. That's the biggest hurdle, I would say, is probably the consistency. Because most people don't have the urge to be that consistent with everything all the time. And they don't want to put in the effort to maintain that level of consistency. They have a list of things to do, not when to do them. Or in order to do them. I watched one of my roommates 2 apartments ago. And he would wake up, sometimes he'd eat breakfast, sometimes he'd shower, sometimes he'd brush his teeth, sometimes he'd drink coffee, sometimes he'd have a smoke. And it was never consistent from day to day. And every day I wake up, I get up, I put on clothing, just in case the roommate happens to have someone over. And I walk out, and I get coffee. I start making it. Unless, you know. And I've gotten used to the fact over the last year that she may wake up a little bit earlier than me and make coffee. And that's fine. But I at least go out to the kitchen and do something with coffee. Whether it's make it or get some. I prefer to make it, but that's just a control freak of mine. But yeah. So, and then I go into the bathroom. Not going to go into the details there, but, you know, do the stuff in the bathroom. Because that's going to take 15-20 minutes. Which is about the time, because I'm typically making the coffee in the morning. Which is about the time it takes for the coffee pot to completely brew. I drink too much coffee to have a Keurig. So, but yeah, and that's, when I lived at my mom's house, we had a bathroom downstairs and a bathroom upstairs. It was, and it sounds gross, and people were still kind of grossed out by it when I tell them. But we had a coffee pot in the bathroom downstairs. We kept a clean bathroom, but like I'd wake up, I'd go in there, and I'd take a shower, and while I'm showering, the coffee pot in there is brewing. And that's one thing Aaron had to really get used to, was the consistency. That I do the same thing every morning. I wake up at the same time, and that it is actually a crisis if I wake up slightly out of schedule. When things don't quite go in schedule. And for anyone that's trying to get into a relationship with a neurotypical that doesn't schedule things very well, if you want some sort of zodiological aversion, try to avoid the air and fire signs. I don't do that because it seems kind of hokey. There's too much about it. There's nothing definite. So, anyways, that's that. That's probably my best advice for a relationship, is to make sure that that person is not only okay with the fact that your schedule needs to be really regimented, that they must also have some sort of regimented schedule. And I even have the plan for chaos time. Sounds like a powerful word, but it's true. And that's Saturday. I don't have The View to watch in the morning. I don't watch the news at night. Saturday is the day that I am okay with random stuff happening. And that's all I can do. And things will work out in the end. You just have to make sure that the person is willing to stick with you for, other reasons other than, the physical reasons. That they have some sort of emotional connection or something. They're invested to change. That's the thing. That they are invested to change. And you need to show them that you are invested to change. It may take a while for you to change. It takes me, in terms of most people, it takes me forever to change. But I tell Aaron, when I do, it's permanent. Near permanent, almost. What do you get? It's like... So, I don't know, I'm just rambling now. Not much more. That's, like I said, I've given my advice, I've given my experience being in a long-term relationship, and the pros and the cons, I guess. Like I said, I don't have much to talk about. I have a lot of information that I probably could say. People know it's in there. I just don't know how to access it. So hopefully people will get, more questions from this, or they can specifically ask questions. Not about me specifically, but it's like, okay, well, they answered that one generally, but I really want to know about this one. And please comment. I want to strike up a conversation with people. And, ask definite questions. That's one thing I'm not good at open-ended questions. I'm still bad at writing essays because I can't fluff my words. I want to get directly to the point. So you need to ask direct questions. It doesn't have to be necessarily direct, that I give direct yes or no answers. But ask direct questions. This video is based on what are the pros and cons of being in a relationship. That sounds like a direct question to most people. But it's like, I need a little bit more. Because I don't know what is a pro to me versus a pro to you. I don't even know what the pros to a relationship are. Seems kind of weird, but I'm making this up as I go in this relationship because, well, I've had one before this. One actual official serious one. There was one that I desperately wanted to happen, but never was going to. Because he he himself was a teenager and screwy in the head, as all teenagers are. So, yeah. I will catch y'all's later. If this gave advice, if this was, you know, please like, you know. I try to do more than my blog videos. You know, so if you want, maybe subscribe. I do blogs and I just generally talk about my day. So, signing off.